going to be one of those days, isn't it? I bought another Range Rover L322, this one that I'm driving right now. So that's the good news, it is driving. I didn't need another car, but someone every L322 owner should know about, Chris, who goes by the name of Chris J. Parks on Facebook and all those other places, who breaks Range Rovers all the time and supplies parts to Range Rover owners all over the world. He supplies all the subframes that I refurbish and remanufacture and sell through Steve's Steel. And so I've been dealing with him for quite a long time, and I said to him recently, if by any chance you get your hands on a 2002 to 2005 TD6 L322 in Tonga green with a dark interior, I want to see it before you break it. And a couple of weeks ago I was down there collecting some other parts, and he said, there you go, there's your car. I couldn't really say no to him, I had to buy it. So here we are, I'm driving home in a 2005 TD6 M57 Tonga green L322 Mark III Range Rover. It's one of the early JLR ones, so I would have preferred a late BMW one, only because I'm more familiar with them, but it's an early JLR one. So substantially the same as the earlier ones. There are some electrical differences, the audio systems are different, relays are different between this and the BMW version of the same car, but substantially they are the same car. Same engine, same gearbox, same ECUs. Oh, there we go, fuel injection system. So we're just gonna peel off, head for the hard shoulder. See, I was getting carried away there. I was going to tell you how well this is running, and unfortunately it let me down at that precise moment. Fuel injection system. So engine still running, engine still runs, engine still runs, engine still runs. Lumpy tick over. No doubt it will die in a moment. Lumpy, 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 lumpy. It might be cleaning itself up. I'm making this video in the wrong order, and in the next part I'll tell you what's going on here, but let's just fix it while we're sat here, and I'll carry on telling you about the car. So, yeah, Chris found this car for me and said, there you go, Stephen, that's the car you were looking for. And I said, well, I suppose I better buy it then. So I did. And I've just been down there. I got a nice lift from my mate Eric down to Derby to pick it up. It's 108 miles back to my place, and we all joked, yeah, that'll be fine, that'll get you there. And it probably will, to be fair, but it has got some problems. There we go, we're up and working again, engine's running. We'll knock it into sport mode, get on the hard shoulder, find a way out of here. Hazard lights off, accelerator down. Ooh, someone's trying to kill me. There we go, nice man. So this car is, if you went shopping and you bought yourself an early L322, in fact probably any L322, this car has got every single one of the problems that you could expect, and that's both bad and good. It's good because I know how to fix these things. It's bad because they're not already fixed for me. But I think this is going to make a fantastic example car for me to make a series of videos for you on what to expect when you buy a 20-year-old L322 for 1,500 quid, 2,000, maybe even £2,500, depending on how much you want it. I'm not going to be able to do it all in one video, so this is going to be a series of videos. We'll probably start off with the essentials, like fixing the air suspension and fixing the engine. There's nothing actually wrong with the engine, there's a problem with the fuel system. I'll come to that. In fact, I'll talk about it later. It has air suspension inactive in front of me here, and it has the brake pad wear warning lights on. I've been driving it for 70 or 80 miles. The engine hasn't got up to temperature. The needle should be sitting in the middle and it's down at the cold end, so the thermostat is stuck open. We are, however, doing fairly reasonable MPG, given the way I'm driving it and the problems I've had over the last hour and a half or so. 27.7 MPG, which is okay. It's not good, but it's okay for this car. It tells me that there's problems, but they're not serious. It's going to need, and I think I'll do this in order of priority, the low pressure side of the fuel system needs a good clean and a fresh fuel filter. And I've recorded a bit which we'll come to, I'll play it in a minute, which explains what that's all about. I have a suspicion, although it might not be the case, I have a suspicion it's got an injector which is leaking by. The bleed off is significant, and so it fails to build pressure in the common injector rail because the pressure's being bled away in that. It only really affects it when you're starting, but it might not be that. It might be the problem with the low pressure fuel system. So I'm going to fix the low pressure fuel system first and see if that solves the starting problem. The engine will need new glow plugs. It'll need new oil filter, air filter, and all of those kinds of things. It needs a new thermostat. So I'll take the front off and I'll put a new thermostat on it, and I'll put new drive belts on it and do all those types of things. Give me an opportunity to check out, see how many people have been in there before, how many screws are missing, all of that kind of thing. The steering's a bit janky. It goes in a straight line, but the steering wheel's canted over at a funny angle. I'm not really surprised. These cars will have had plenty of replacement parts over the years, and if you replace parts for an MOT, for example, and don't bother getting the tracking done, then you end up in this situation. I need to have a look at the braking system because, as I say, I've got a pad wear warning light on, so it's either got no brake pads or the little sensor cable is damaged. It's actually more likely to be the cable, but I've got spares of those in the workshop. What else are we needing to do on it? It's got the inevitable rust, but we'll come to that. I've just through general feel of the car, I'll suggest it needs a complete front to back suspension refurbishment. That'll be every bushing and every bearing all the way through front and rear suspension. Bit of a time consuming, dirty job, but anybody who knows what I do for a living, stevesteele.co.uk, go and look it up, I'll link it below, will know that I've probably got a manufactured front and rear subframe in stock, along with the wishbones and the hubs and the brakes and everything else, because that's what I do for a living. I can fix your car, or at least I can post you the bits to fix it. Yeah, so complete suspension, brakes. I might upgrade it. It's the TD6. It's got the small single pot calipers on the front, single pot caliper on the rear, or it might be a twin pot caliper on the front, but it's a single pot caliper on the rear. They're adequate for a car which you're going to run to the shops and back. But the way I tend to use these vehicles, I'm going to probably put the brakes on it from the later 3.6 or 4.4. They had a twin pot rear caliper and a 4-pot Brembo on the front. Those brakes are, I think, just about right for this car. Huge amounts of feel and no effort on the brake pedal. They just stop you regardless of what you're doing with the car. Very fine modulation as well, which the brakes, these earlier brakes don't really have that fine modulation. So if you're on a very slippery surface, the upgrade of the braking system on a TD6 is well worth it, I think, although relatively expensive to do. I'll do a complete set of fluids, so we'll do the gearbox and transaxle, transfer box, front and rear axles. We'll do all of that while we're under there. What else are we going to do? It's got the expected rust around the back ends of the sills where it meets the rear wheel arch behind the door. It's a very, oh there we go, fuel injection system again. It will die in a moment. Thankfully I've got a hard shoulder, so I'm going to use it before the engine dies, because it's very embarrassing rolling to a halt in traffic or suddenly discovering you haven't got a hard shoulder to pull out onto. Engine's still running, I'm going to crawl. Oh, there it goes. It just died. Did it? Yes, it did. So, yeah, this is the fault that you'll see me talking about in a little while. Handbrake on, into park, engine off, key back in, turn it on, position 2. As the lights on for those who care. Turn it off. Key in ignition, position 2. This is priming up the fuel system, putting some pressure into it so that it can deal with the problem that it's got. And off and on again, and this time it should start. I don't want to flatten the battery, so I'm not going to spin it unnecessarily. We'll try again. This problem could also be caused by glow plugs, or combination, probably a combination of all these things, the glow plugs and the engine not coming up to proper working temperature, all of which will be screwing with the ECU and telling the engine, telling the ECU it needs to deliver more fuel than it's capable of. So hopefully, there we go. We go. So as the lights off, into sport mode, indicator off, and blend in with the traffic again. The engine runs really nicely. I don't think there's anything substantially wrong with the engine other than the fuel system. And you know, fixing the fuel system on this is not going to be difficult.
A few moments later.
I have rarely been so pleased with roadworks on the A1 and the M1, because ticking along at 50 miles an hour, limping this car home, which is what I'm doing, doesn't look so out of place when you're in the roadworks. You don't feel like you've got lorries hugely up behind you, threatening to just plough you out of the way. So yeah, here we are. We're on the A1. I've got about 25 miles to go. I've managed to cover a few miles since I last talked to you, but yeah, about 25 miles to go. And the conclusion I'm coming to is that the fuel injection system, the whole fuel delivery system, is fucked. I've been thinking as I'm driving and watching the moment when it fails, because it has failed about another 3, it might be 4 times since I last spoke to you. Thinking about the mechanism of failure. The turbos on these spool up, if I remember correctly, the vacuum on the variable vane technology that these turbos use spools up at about 1800 RPM, I believe, or it might be higher than that, it might be 2,500, but in that order. And what I've found is that if I allow the revs to drop down to 2,000 RPM, regardless of what gear I'm in, then when I touch the throttle next, it'll start chugging. Then I'll get the fuel injection system error, and then it will die. And the reason it's dying, I know this from reading the manual, the technical manual, is that the ECU measures the pressure of the low pressure side of the high pressure fuel pump and also the high pressure side. And I believe it also measures the pressure in the return. So if it sees the fuel pressure on the low pressure side of the high pressure fuel pump drop, it will put the engine into a limp mode, low power mode. There's no restricted revs, but there's restricted performance. If the fuel pressure continues to drop on the inlet to the high pressure fuel pump, then it actually kills the engine. And the reason it does that is to protect the engine from predetonation and sucking in air without fuel and doing all those sorts of things. And what I'm experiencing is that we go driving, I let the revs drop down a little bit too low, the car splutters, which is a sign of it actually running out of fuel, not having enough fuel to keep the engine going. A moment later we get the fuel injection system fault, and a moment after that we get an engine shutdown. You pull over to the side of the road, inevitably, turn the engine off, turn the key to position 2, like engine on but not started, hold it there for 20 seconds, turn it off, turn it back on, 20 seconds, turn it off, back on. And what you would have done is allowed the low pressure side of the fuel system to charge the pressure in the pipes and the filter and everything up to the pump. Then you can start it, and it's fine for a while. I've also found and I think this is to do with the power output curve of the engine. The power output curve of the engine doesn't really pick up until around 2000 RPM. So if you let the engine revs drop below 2000 RPM and put your foot down, then what happens is the engine has to dump lots of fuel into it, but without the turbo helping it, because the turbo hasn't spooled up, and the fuel system at the moment can't deliver that fuel, so it immediately triggers this cascade of failures. So what I've done is I've knocked it down into sport mode, and the sport mode on these 5-speed gearboxes, the GM gearbox that was supplied with these M57 engines on these early L322s, when you put it into sport mode, it changes the gearbox mapping and the engine mapping slightly, but it also doesn't use 4th gear. And so that allows me, like right now, I'm doing 55 miles an hour and the engine's running at about 2,600 RPM, which if it had kicked into fifth, 2,500 RPM is about 70 miles an hour, not 55. Now, traffic isn't letting me go that fast, and I might find if the traffic did, I could knock it into fifth and I could cruise at 70 and it would be fine. And that's because the power curve is in the right place. You're on the steep part of the curve, which means the engine's running at its most efficient. It's sipping the fuel and producing lots of power from it. Whereas that transition, when the turbo isn't really working through to the moment it is working, particularly if you boot it at 1800, 2000 RPM, turbo hasn't spooled up, engine dumps loads of fuel in, tries to, the system can't deliver it, and it goes into fault mode. So here we are with about 20 miles to go, and I'm managing to keep it going without having to pull over at the moment, which is good news because I was getting quite bored of diving for the hard shoulder, hazard lights on, stop the engine, prime up the fuel system, prime up the fuel system, prime up the fuel system, start it, pull out, drive 3, 4, 5 miles, do the same thing again. So I'm quite pleased. Hopefully, I don't suppose we're going to get all the way back without having to do it again, but I am actually hoping that I can get most of the way home without having to do it again. As the miles tick down, I become more optimistic, which is a good place to be. Otherwise, the car is doing just fine. Yeah, there you go. Range Rovers, nothing but trouble. So if you've been watching the earlier videos, you'd have seen me pick this car up and drive it home, and I had numerous problems, all to do with, I'm presuming, the low pressure side of the fuel system, and I've got a hunch that it's a clogged filter. If it's not, then it'll be the pump that's under the passenger side. I don't think it's the in-tank pump. But what I need to do is open the bonnet. And the cable's broken. So we're going to have to approach that slightly differently and in a little while. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you around the car. So let's have a look at it. So she's 2005 TD6. It's actually a really nice and tidy car. It looks good. There's a bit of snow on the roof because it's snowing outside. I brought her into the workshop so we can do this in a bit of peace and quiet. Bodywork is adequate for its age. She's 19 years old. We've got those little things that need attention on the outside. We've got a smashed headlight here, which we're going to have to deal with. We've got some loose pieces of trim, a missing piece here, but they're all easily fixed. All of this looks fine. We've got spotlights which aren't properly mounted. They'll need to come out and be redone. And the panel fitment's not as good as it could be, but again, we'll take this bumper off and sort it out. There's a few little stone chips in the front of the bonnets, here and here. They've been painted over. It's okay, there you go. It's not really a problem. Can't really focus. I actually quite like this grille. I'm more a fan of the original slatted grills that were fitted on these cars, and I have actually got another one which I could paint to match and put that on, but we'll come to that. This indicator and side light is not mounted properly. It's obviously missed its clip there. Again, if I could open the bonnet, then I could get to the twiddly bits and sort that out. Panel fit this side is better. Not bad at all. Going down the side of the car. Ooh, come on, focus. There we go. Going down the side of the car. Again, it's got these later vents. Hang on, let me see. Clean the lens, maybe that'll help. There we go. Yeah, these vents, I quite like them. I think we can live with them. It's got side steps on. They're fairly recent. They're obviously not the originals. They haven't rusted through, so that's something to be said for it. It's got all the rear, front and rear wheel arch liners all in place. It's got handle covers all body colour matched, and wing mirrors are all body colour matched, even if it's got a bit of damage in it there, and it's not properly mounted, but that's okay. It seems to have, it's possible it's got the right mirrors in it. Got a fair amount of greenery. We'll give the car a proper clean at some point in the very near future. We've got typical bubbling. Here we go, here's a piece. You see this bubbling of this trim here and here. That's very typical of a car this age. Top edge around here, this trim isn't seated properly. We'll pop it off and find out why, but all of this is in place. The windscreen is fine. Someone's put some odd wiper blades on it, not the original equipment. They seem to work okay, but I think I prefer the original equipment ones. Clips missing. As we go down the side, bodywork's very straight. There's no dents or anything serious in this side. We've got a bit of a scratch there that would probably polish out. Wheels, we've got a matching set of wheels, but I haven't got a spare for it that matches. And we've got some reasonable tyres, although they don't match all the way around. Rear end, this is, it's not focusing again. Why is it not focusing? Daft camera. There we go. Rear end, mud flaps on it, bumpers, all of that kind of stuff. We've got some slightly foggy lenses. They've obviously got some water in them, but the one on the other side, as you'll see in a minute, has already got a big chip out of it. The bottom edge of the boot lid here, where they typically rust, this is very savable. We're going to put some effort into making sure this doesn't go any further. We'll take the internal trim off and soak it in WD-40 and wax oil and things like that, and try and ensure that that doesn't start creeping up here, because these have a tendency to rust all the way around here. Lower tailgate's fine. I don't think it's got any dents in it at all, which is unusual. Got a tow bar but no tow ball. That's the fairly standard for these. It is a Vogue. This side of the boot lid is not quite so good. We got a little bit of bubbling of the paint just there. Again, we'll salvage that, I think. This trim that runs along the bottom of the glass, as you see a lot of these taken off, I think actually they are tidier with it taken off. And if we're going to sort out this panel, then we'll probably take that off at that point. A big hole in the rear lens cover. Not a difficult fix, I'll just got 2 bolts and take it off. All of this is fine, as you'd expect. The water underneath is from the snow melting. Don't worry about that. This is the only piece of bodywork which I would like to fix. It's got a little scrape there, which you might be able to see as it plays around in the reflections. It's really not very big. Simple little clean would blend it in, but I know it's there, so we will deal with that. The side of the roof rails, absolutely fine. You rarely see any damage on these. They're usually okay, but you can see how grubby it is as well. It just needs a really thorough clean. These trims on this side seem to fit much better. You can see in here, you can see all this greenery in here. All of that needs cleaning. This mirror is a much better fit, it's not damaged. That's fine. Doors, typical. The driver's door has the exposed key. You can get a cover for those, but I like that. Side step again. It's not the original one, and this one's actually broken. The outside trim on it's gone, and this one's rusted through. So I think we'll just be taking these off. I don't like side steps anyway, so I think we'll just be taking them off and scrapping them. I have got another set if we decide to fit them, but we probably won't. And just finish the outside tour of it. Front wing there. All good. So she's a clean looking car on the outside. Very presentable. Tonga green. I bought this car just because it was Tonga green. It wouldn't actually have mattered what engine it had in it or what condition everything else was. I wanted a Tonga green car. Now the inside, it's not my favourite interior by a long way. I have two other L322s. I've got one which has got this cream and the cream seats and everything. This has this mixture of grey and cream. I would have preferred to have had a piano black interior. And I've got a 3.6 that's got a perfect piano black interior. But my wife will kill me if I try and steal that and put it in here. So I might have to find one somewhere else. But actually, the interior is in very good condition. It's got the usual wear and tear that you'd expect from a car of this age, but it hasn't got many broken bits. Everything else seems to be in place and as it should be. I have removed the cover over here to get to the bonnet release cable to see if I could make it work better, but I can't. So I'm going to have to put that back and find another way. Typical Vogue accessories and dash, heated steering wheel, heated seats front and rear, cruise control, all of those types of things, and really comfortable seats even if you don't like the look of them. Door shuts, doors and everything else is fine. You get that lovely sound when you shut the door. You know it's a Range Rover when you do that. Open the boot. I've got a boot full of rubbish. The parcel shelf is in dire need of replacement. It is in a terrible condition, but I do have in storage, I've got a spare parcel shelf which is in much better condition than this one, so we can do that. I took these panels off so that I could have a quick look inside and just make sure everything is as it should be and there's no hidden piles of £20 notes or anything like that. Wish there wasn't. So overall, I'm very pleased with this car. I think it's going to be great. Just as long as I can get the bonnet open.
A few moments later.
Good news is, I got the bonnet open. Let's have a look at this. So, it's a fairly common problem. The bonnet's got two catches. One here. And one here. and they meet is here and here. And you'll see that because I'm working on my own, I had to be clever. I have got a tool which is exactly the right length, holding the lever up, which means that if that's happening, that cable runs along here. There's a little box underneath there, which it runs through, and the cable goes down there, it's there, and then it runs under here, and it comes to the first of these catches. And if you look down the hole, you'll see that a little bale wire, I think that's what it's called, is pulled back. And the fact that the baling wire is pulled back means that there was actually nothing to stop it, because what happens is, as it slams down on there, this bit gets pulled back and the bale wire sits behind that ledge. But with the bale wire not there, as you can see, it was still stuck. And so what I'm going to do is think, while I've got the bonnet open, about how I'm going to realign this and make sure it doesn't happen again. I might just take those pins off for now and just leave the bonnet on its safety catch until I've had a chance to sort that out properly. But anyway, other things, you'll notice that there's this universal bonnet prop in here. That's because the gas struts, which are supposed to hold the bonnet up, one on each side, are not holding the bonnet up. So that's something that will need to go on the list. Otherwise, what do we see when we look into this engine bay for the first time? The first thing we see is this cover isn't screwed down at all. So we'll take that off. But otherwise, this is refreshingly unmessed about with. Vacuum pipe there. Now, I think you might have heard me saying I thought this car might have vacuum problems. The vacuum pipe looks like someone's had a sledgehammer on it. I'm not really sure why, but never mind. This is a vacuum advance, and look at that. So this is the EGR valve, and one of the things the engine was complaining about was EGR. That's the vacuum pipe. It's not actually on. So, not surprised the EGR wasn't working. Unfortunately, I haven't got any other lights here at the moment, so I can't really give you an in-depth view of what's going on here. It's got a nice big start battery, but I don't know the condition of it or the age. We'll have a proper look at that later. This is the fuel filter. I'm going to change that because I believe that might be part of where the problem is. Oh, hang on, what's this? This isn't right. Cover missing off the back of the headlight, so all its guts are hanging out. We'll put that back on properly. We'll have a look at this. Someone's been here before trying to sort out that side repeater, indicator, side light, and make it fit properly, and failed because I imagine one of the fixings is broken or missing, but we'll have a look at that. What's happening on the other side? We're looking for witness marks as well. Can you see? You see there? You can see that this has been undone and the headlight's been pushed back. The headlight pushed back is actually in the wrong position because it's crushing it here and it's open here. So we'll slacken that off and let the whole lot come forward and sit back where it should be. One thing I do often look at when I open the bonnet on one of these for the first time is the grille, and in particular its fixing screws. I'm looking to see that it's got the original fixing screws and that the tabs aren't broken, because that's always a really good guide to how much it's been messed around with. And these two screws are correct. None of the tabs are broken, but that's the wrong screw. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but it just tells you a little bit about what's going on here. Yeah, this car has had vacuum problems. Can you see here? Someone's replaced Jubilee clips. They're probably looking in the wrong place. I'm going to do a separate video about vacuum lines and the sorts of problems that we get with them. But I'll give you a hint. This one here, and this one that runs off of here. These are absolutely critical to the operation of the turbo. So this is vacuum from the vacuum pump here on the front of the engine via a little manifold that's hidden underneath there. And then this is an accumulator, and this pipe here goes down to a solenoid, electronically operated by the engine's ECU, to open the vacuum to the turbo and allow it to spool up. And with that pipe off of there, the vacuum being generated by the engine would not have been sufficient, and it may be that the turbo wasn't spooling up. And that on its own might be enough to stop this engine from working properly. But what we're going to do, I've got another, we'll just wander over here. We've got another filter, which I picked up on my way past. There she is, my booty. We're going to fit that. Oh, all the rubbers are missing out of there. Well, what do you expect for a 190,000 mile engine? Right, let's see if we can prop this camera up somewhere where it's useful. And I'll let you watch this endeavour to change this fuel pump. Not this fuel pump, this fuel filter. I'll prop this up in a way that's useful. Probably I need a socket or something. So that need a little bit of ingenuity. There we go. Right, I think you can see what I'm doing from there. We're going to be working on this, which is the fuel filter, and here is my new one, Napa NFF2031. Not a difficult job to change. We're going to need a screwdriver to undo those cable clamps. We're going to need a Torx for that one, and we'll need to unplug that one. And then there's another Torx around here, which is the clamp that goes around the body of the fuel filter. So tell me if the camera moves all of a sudden and you can't see, because I can't see the other side of the camera while I'm doing this. These are not the right clips, but for the purposes of fixing this car, which is what I want to do, I'm going to make it so it doesn't break down on me. I'm just going to go with it as they are. Right, and now we need the Torx bit for that. 30, I think. Undo that. Pull that bugger out, and then undo that. So there's a fuel pressure sensor that lives in the top of here. And we're just going to gently ease her out of there. That filter is in a horrible condition. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it's not been changed for a few thousand miles, and it only takes one tank of dirty fuel to completely block your fuel filter, and when that happens you get all kinds of problems. I'm hoping the kinds of problems we've been having. So the fuel pressure sensor goes back on the top of the filter there. That tight. That drops back in there. I'm using a T30 for both of these, but in reality this one's a T30 and that one's a T40. Just don't tell anyone and don't get upset by it. Now, I haven't primed this, but you don't need to with these M57s because they have a pretty good lift pump, which a couple of cycles of the ignition key will quite happily lift the fuel and prime the filter before you start it. Plug back on. Right, and one more thing to do to that before we continue. Can't do it. What's the date? It's November. November 24. Okay, when I get my paint pen, when I find my paint pen, I'll go over that, and I'll probably use this video to remind me what it was I did. Right, so new filter fitted, okay, and I'm happy with that. It all went on fine. You'll be familiar probably with these clear pipes. These tell you whether or not there's air in the fuel. This one goes off to the high pressure fuel pump, which is under there. This is part of the breather system for the engine. This wire is the only one that goes on here. You'll often hear people wondering what these plugs are for. These plugs here, which are in the wiring harness associated with that, don't worry about them. They don't do anything on your car. And the reason for that is that if you've got a car which is designed or was manufactured for a hot climate like Saudi or somewhere, this fuel filter, this fuel cooler here will have this air ducting with a fan in it. And those plugs are to do with the fan and the airflow sensors and things like that. So with the fuel filter done, we'll just check the oil and things and have a quick look, because I just picked this car up and drove it 100 miles and didn't even think about such things. That's promising. Actually, as I couldn't open the bonnet, I didn't really have a choice but to just get in and drive it. there you go. Level's good. Maybe do with a half a pint. Colour's good. I think that's quite a recent oil change by the looks of it. We'll have a look under the cap here as well, just see what that's like. Nothing there to worry about. Steering, pump fluid reservoir, that's got oil in it, looks clear, it's not milky. And we'll have a look in here as well, see what the water level is like. It pops up to the right place, that's clean, it's got nothing on it. I think you can see in there, its level is a little bit low, but it looks clean. There's no mess in there. We'll top that up. I've got some red fluid. I'm not going to put that back on right now. If I leave it off, it will remind me to sort out the whole thing. I'm going to leave that off as well, because that didn't actually have any screws in it. So this engine has still got the original EGR valve and the cooler, fan shroud, fan, all of that kind of stuff. Hoses are there, but they're not looking wonderful. All the cables are in the right place, it's nice to see. You see these two connectors, you often find these are just hanging around underneath somewhere because they've been taken out and never put back. Yeah, those ones there. These pipes here. Right, sorry, back with you. Just for a moment there, my camera stops recording, but what I've done is I've reconnected that side. I've taken the supply side off, put it in here, dropped it in there, and now what we're going to do is turn the ignition on and see whether or not the fuel spits out of it, which it should do. What's that for? Well, it coughed and spluttered, and then it started spitting it out, so I'm happy. If I put that back on there, the thing about this is all proving to me that it was actually the problem with the low pressure side of the fuel system. I'm not saying we've solved it, but I'm happy that we're finding it. We're finding things that are wrong, and if you find things that are wrong and you fix them, well, eventually you'll run out of things that are wrong and it'll be fixed. So I just saw that with a continuous stream of fuel coming out. So I think now if I turn on the ignition, it will prime up this filter, and after 2 or 3 cycles of priming, I think the engine will start. Let's find out, shall we? Key in ignition. I can hear that pump running, and it sounds like it's actually pumping something. And it sounds like it's coming up to pressure. We're going to start it. There we have it. That's great news. chuffed. I'm going to go and test drive it now, find out whether or not we really did fix it. I'll see you in a little while.